Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand Narsimhan. Ladies and gentlemen, the big story on this edition of The Right Stand is this entire ruckus created by the opposition and a section of lawyers over Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the residence of the Chief Justice of Bharat, Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, on the occasion of Ganpati Puja. So the Supreme Court Chief Justice and his family are seen doing the Aarti or worship or standing while Prime Minister Narendra Modi is performing the Aarti to the Vignaharta or Ganeshas that's been kept during the time of Ganpati. Now, from leaders of the Congress party to top lawyers to many other political outfits or parties part of the INDI alliance, they've all come out and taken umbrage. They are attacking Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Justice Chandrachud. The question arises whether Prime Minister Narendra Modi has committed an offence or breached the entire separation of powers logic where the judiciary and executive are supposed to be independent of each other by visiting Justice Chandrachud's residence upon his invitation for being part of a festival. Now, the whole question is being asked about the impartiality of the Chief Justice and that being in danger because of the Prime Minister's visit to his residence for the puja. Now, many are asking this question, is it because Prime Minister Narendra Modi went to Justice Chandrachud's residence, or is it because it was for a puja? There was a Hindu festival or a ritual and they were together in a Hindu festival. Is that the reason why? And the group that is asking this is supposedly liberal, largely calling themselves very, very liberal. They are not, and somewhere who believe that Justice Chandrachud was on their side. And by doing this, he has shifted sides and thereby his justice, his judicial wisdom, his acumen and his ability to preside on cases over the next 2 months that is remaining of his tenure is now being questioned whether it's going to be partisan or bipartisan. Should they have gone public with these pictures? Should they have done this privately, quietly? Now, this answer can be very easily found at that period when neither the BJP was in power nor was Justice Chandrachud around. We get a clear answer to this question in the autobiography of the likes of Justice P.B. Gajendra Gadkar, who was appointed the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court during the time of the country's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru. There are other instances in the past where the separation of powers hasn't existed, ladies and gentlemen. Where the executive has directly interfered, influenced even the construct of the judiciary. During the times of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi, thereafter continuously in successive Congress, UPA-led governments, we've seen these instances, and even in the non-Congress UPA governments, there have been instances where there has been close proximity, as documented by former Chief Justice Gajendra Gadkar himself, between the Prime Minister and the Chief Justice, not just the Prime Minister, even the Home Minister. So the people who are taking umbrage, are they taking umbrage? Would they have been okay had Justice Chandrachud and Prime Minister Narendra Modi just had a cup of tea? They are okay with MPs from their side, lawyers from their side, who regularly wine, dine and are very close, have maintained close friendship, proximity with the Chief Justice. They are okay with that. Perhaps would they have been okay had it just been a cup of tea? Are they taking umbrage because it's Ganesh Vandana? Both of them are in the same frame praying and celebrating the festival of the Vignaharta, the remover of obstacles as far as the Hindu way of life is concerned, that is Ganesha.
हमारी जो केस है महाराष्ट्र में, जो घटना बाह्य सरकार चल रही है और उसकी सुनवाई चंद्रचूड़ साहब के सामने चल रही है। तो हमें शंका है कि हमें न्याय मिलेगा.
A judge should ensure that he is impartial. He will not take any sides. That is why everybody is condemning Modi's visiting Puja in the judge's house.
That in 2009, when Mr. Balakrishnan was the Chief Justice of India, and at the time, the incumbent Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh hosted an iftar party at his residence, which was attended by the Chief Justice of India. One can ask a question then also.
और वहां अमेरिका जाके इल्हान ओमर से मिलते हैं, उस पे आपत्ति नहीं है.
If executive and the judiciary both comes together to celebrate puja, whether Ganpati Puja or some other puja, I think it is a step we should welcome.
Dr. Ajay Alok of the BJP is with us, and so is Tehseen Poonawalla, political analyst. Namaste and Jai Hind, gentlemen. Tehseen Poonawalla, where is the problem?
Anand, first of all, wishing all your viewers, you and Ajay Bhai, a very happy Ganesh Chaturthi. In my city of Pune and my state of Maharashtra, Ganesh ji is our local deity, not just the Hindu way of life, the Indian way of life. But let me just put two things across. There is no problem that the Honorable Prime Minister does Ganesh Puja. I do it at my house. We have Ganesh ji right now, Virajman in our house. There is no problem with that. This is not about Ganesh Puja or iftar. This is not about one versus the other. Even if the Honorable Chief Justice of India would have hosted a private dinner, not a puja, not an iftar. Even if he had hosted hypothetically an iftar, which the Prime Minister would have attended, it is wrong. It is as wrong as KG Balakrishnan attending Manmohan Singh ji's iftar. It is as wrong as any of the other wrongdoings in the past. And two wrongs do not make a right. There is an invisible line of the separation between the judiciary and the executive that needs to be maintained when the head of the judiciary is having a private function, whatever that function is, even religious, with the head of the government. I think that crosses that invisible rekha of separation between judiciary and executive.
When I say the Hindu way of life, I am following Veer Savarkar's definition. So if you believe your ancestors were from this Bhubhag, you are also Hindu for me, sir. So that's why the Hindu way of life. I didn't say Hindu Dharma.
I do follow the Hindu way of life.
So that's exactly. So that's why I said
Ganesha. I have a Kalaba in my
So that's what I'm saying. So that's exactly what I'm saying. So Ganesha is a Hindu way of life. But Dr. Ajay Alok, do you agree, disagree with Tehseen Poonawalla कि 2009 में जो किया वो गलत था? उस वक्त भले ही हमने सेलिब्रेट किया कि कितना सेक्युलर है ये, बट अभी गलत है. It's wrong now.
See, it's wrong to comment on anybody's religious sentiments. Lord Ganpati doesn't know that who is the Prime Minister and who is the Chief Justice of India. It's in the mind of the people like what they think and how do they think. These were the only ecosystem. This was the ecosystem when this same Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, when he trashed the electoral bonds, they were very happy. Oh, now this constitution is saved. Here is one man savior. Today, Sanjay Raut saying, "Ghar ke chirag se ghar ko aag lagi." I mean, look at the kind of thinking. Both are offering prayers. What's the harm in it? If you do iftar together, it becomes secularism, and the constitution is saved, and the democracy is strengthened. But if you do Ganesh Puja together, the democracy comes under threat. The CJI's integrity is under question. What kind of a logic this is? This is a kind of intellectual bankruptcy, nothing else. There are so many instances where political favor were exchanged with judiciary, and the famous quote from V.K. Krishna Iyer, the esteemed Supreme Court judge. And mind you, we are in a democracy when we have four pillars. If there is an executive, there is legislation, and there is a judiciary, and the fourth is your journalism. They both have to interact. All the four have to interact to strengthen the democracy. You cannot be at the loggerheads or at the arm's length, and you cannot be at the crossroads all the time. And this is a matter of religious sentiments. The Ganpati festival is going on. D.Y. Chandrachud belongs to Maharashtra. He has organized a puja. He invited the PM. PM went there, offered his prayer. What's the harm? The total stay was less than 10 minutes.
No.
And you people are creating controversy just because he was offering Ganesh Puja. The point is this. That why you are opposing Ganesh Puja when you are not opposing iftar or Eid?
Okay. The other
Isn't
thing,
it like the hurting the sentiment that I am offering prayers to Ganpati? Why I am offering at the Chief Minister's house? Why am I offering at the Chief Justice's house? This is no logic.
okay, Tehseen Poonawalla, if Sanjay Raut says घर के चिराग से घर को आग लगी, isn't that also undermining the integrity of Justice Chandrachud? Now, either ways you have called him partisan. या तो वो हमारी साइड में या उनकी साइड में है तो फिर दगाबाज हो गया, पार्टिजान हो गया. हमारी साइड में तो इंडिपेंडेंट है, सही है. That itself is questioning the integrity of Justice Chandrachud.
You've got Sanjay Raut, and he often puts his foot in the mouth, and it causes a problem to the MBA. I've made this public. Sanjay Raut should stop talking. If the MBA wants to win, it can win Maharashtra, but he should stop talking. And that's my advice to Uddhavji. Part of why his government fell was Sanjay Raut and opening his mouth. I'm not going to comment on Sanjay Raut. What is the problem? Ajay Bhai has again gone to the Ganesh Puja. I have Ganesh Ji Virajman in my house. Ganesh Puja is not the issue. Let me be hypothetically that the CJI was hosting an iftar and the Honorable Prime Minister went. That too is wrong. The Honorable Chief Justice of India decided to host a private dinner and the Prime Minister went. The idea is about separation, one, of church and state. Two, that line is far crossed in our country. Second, the separation of judiciary and executive. That is important. Now, this was a private puja. I absolutely respect it. The Honorable Prime Minister went, I respect it. Why were these pictures made public or the video made public? So this should not happen. In an ideal democracy, it shouldn't happen. That's my sentiment. That has nothing to do with a puja or an iftar or a private dinner. I'm very clear on that.
My point here is that if they are going, why should they hide it? In Bharat, anybody and everybody, when they should have the freedom to go fully without judgment being passed on their own integrity and personal integrity. So there is no judgment passed when somebody goes out to play golf or is having dinner and sharing a glass of wine with each other. That's perfectly fine. But if they go for Ganesh Puja, then their integrity is questioned. Then should
judges
justice
shouldn't be playing golf with lawyers.
No.
They shouldn't be playing. And if judges are playing, the conduct of judges should come in.
No, why conduct of judges? Why not conduct of lawyers?
Both of them, but a lawyer and a politician.
Can they call themselves holier than thou?
No,
can they call themselves these lawyers? What about their integrity? When lawyers start lecturing justices and say, listen, you better listen to me, postpone this entire thing till the 2019 because you understand me.
Listen? So why do the judges listen?
So that is ethical.
Why do the judges
that is
listen?
all parlance. That's all par for course.
I'm not saying
this is this entire lot you're preaching.
I'm saying a politician and a lawyer will do what it takes him or her to be in power or win a case. It is judges on whom we depend. Judges should not just be independent, you should seem to be independent.
Sir,
and that invisible rekha should not be crossed.
I'll also come to that. Ajay Alok, yes.
There was a retired Supreme Court Justice, he's no more with us, Mr. V.K. Krishna Iyer. He joined judiciary in 1968 after already being elected as a MLA from Kerala. He was very famous judge and his quotes are quite often mentioned. So he once quoted in the Supreme Court that politics without law is just like the law will become blind. And law without politics is like politics will become deaf. So both are integrated, sir. You cannot separate them. As I said earlier, these are pillars of our strength for our democracy. And don't create unnecessary questions out of it. If you talk of integrity, where is Rahul Gandhi's integrity when he meets Ilhan Omar? Where does Rahul Gandhi integrity goes when he openly sides with Ro Khanna, who's a known pro-Pakistani analyst and a pro-Khalistani propagandist? Why he meets them? Mushfiqur Rahman Arsari, the famous BNP founder leader, Rahul Gandhi is having pictures with him, who made massacres of Hindus recently. Where does the integrity goes? What are your parameters for the integrity?
According to Tehseen Poonawalla, netas need not have integrity because they'll do anything to set their politics and for their politics. But others are supposed to have integrity and they should not hobnob. So let's just try and understand it. Now I got a book in my hand. Can I show you this, Ajay Alok? And this is relevant today. This is a book, and Tehseen Poonawalla, if you're watching, to the best of my memory, it is written by P.B. Gajendra Gadkar. P.B. Gajendra Gadkar ji is a former Chief Justice of Bharat. He was appointed under, this is P.B. Gajendra Gadkar ji. So that's his picture. Yeah. Okay. And he was a former Chief Justice of Bharat. And this is what he's writing. Okay. To the best Chief Justice of India, this is his book. Page number 176. And I'm just going to read this if I can. 3 events he talks about. two events are important. The second event which I remember is my visit to Tirupati in a formal manner. Rama Rao, who's a genius at managing religious institutions, had invited us. We attended the morning prayer Suprabhatam and were taken round the temple with kalashas on our heads. So this is the Chief Justice when he was still in office. He was in Tirupati. Then we went inside the sanctum sanctorum and sat there for 45 minutes where puja was being performed. After we came out, Rama Rao showed us the glittering jewelry of the deity and explained to us the principles on which the institution is being managed. The Venkateshwara temple is probably the richest religious temple in India, but it is organized and managed in a very modern, efficient manner under a special act. So then he talks about this. Then the third incident, he says, Mama Sahib Dandekar, who had a distinguished academic career in philosophy, was a professor of philosophy in SP College, Pune, and was recognized leader of the Warkari cult in Maharashtra. He devoted the whole of his time after his retirement to the service of his cult. I'm just setting context here, ladies and gentlemen. One day I received a letter from Mama Sahib inviting me to go to Pandharpur to open a new mandap in the temple of Vithoba. Vithoba or Vithal is a deity worshipped by the Warkaris and is regarded as the Venkateshwara of the West. So be it Venkateshwara in the south or Venkateshwara of the West, I went to these people. Now, frankly, I wrote to Mama Sahib that I was not a Warkari and frankly I cannot be claimed to be a religious man in the orthodox sense of the term. He wrote back that the mandap was named Gajendra Mandap. And apart from the fact that he regarded me as qualified to open the mandap and address the Warkaris, the fact that the name of the mandap and the inscription would remind generations that I performed the auspicious ceremony would be sufficient inducement to me. So I went to Pandharpur on the settled date. Okay, and then he says he and his wife went there and they also participated in the worship. Now he is explaining this. This is interesting, ladies and gentlemen. Having mentioned these two religious events, I ought to make it clear that in my view, belief in true and rational religion was in no sense inconsistent with secularism. Coming to your point, okay. Secularism as it is understood in the West is basically and fundamentally anti-religion, anti-God and anti-church. On the other hand, our Samvidhan, our constitution makes it clear that secularism means tolerance of all religions. Important fundamental rights have been conferred relating to religion. The constitution recognizes that whereas some people may not believe in religion at all and yet they are to be entitled rights of citizenship others. Some people seem to think that secularism means anti-religionism, but in my view that is not the Indian constitution's concept of secularism at all. You may be non-religious, irreligious or religious, you are a citizen all right and you have the rights of a citizen and of course you are the subject of its obligations, but religion as an institution is recognized in the Indian way and has been given a place of pride in the constitution with sufficient safeguards. Thereby, he says, I did not feel it was an unusual act. Religion in the best sense of any word in my view is a necessity. Whether the existence of God can be proved or not is a different matter. And then he goes on to further say, I am not religious in the traditional sense of the term. I am religious in the sense that I believe that there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt in your philosophy. Prayer in the real spiritual sense is a place in life and prayer does not play an important role in the affairs and lives of men. Prayer which makes you look inward and think of the ethical, spiritual, righteous side of life of one's duties. It is in this sense that I entered the two temples as a devout Hindu and performed pujas. The impression left in my mind by those two solemn occasions is still alive. So he says that should have no bearing on my job or my decisions as a Chief Justice. So this whole secularism wala bahana doesn't work. Harish Salvi ji is with me on the phone line. Harish Salvi ji, namaste. This is Anand here. We'll try and connect back with him. He's just stepped out of the airport and he's agreed to speak with us. We'll just connect back with him and speak with him again. He also quotes the Bhagavad Gita here. So, will you say appointed by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, actually with a super session and selected, Justice Justice Gajendra Gadkar, PB Gajendra Gadkar, was wrong?
Just one quick point. That when the Warkaris walk through Pandharpur, they go through Pune, and that's when I join this walk every year. This is every year. Yeah, I join this walk every year.
So that's exactly what. So what is all this whole noise about?
But when I am the Home Minister or Finance Minister of this country, I will not attend it. I will not go to the Chief Justice's house. I am very clear. We are talking about a separation between my executive and the judiciary. That Rekha, that Lakshman Rekha, if I may, that line, if I may, must be very clear.
Okay.
Must be very clear.
During the time of Lal Bahadur Shastri and also Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, during my tenure as Chief Justice, the arrangement was that the Home Minister used to come to me. He stayed just opposite my bungalow. And I used to go to the Prime Minister late in the evening after his appointment is over so that I do not have to wait. Ajay Alok.
I don't agree with it. So?
Gajendra Gadkar ji has written this also, page number 185.
Gajendra Gadkarji has rightly said everything, that being religious does not mean that it's going to affect my judgment. When a judge is sitting on the chair and pronouncing the judgment, he is absolutely impartial. And that's why 140 crores people of this country have faith in judiciary. End of the day. And today, just because he's offering prayers to Ganpati, you are casting aspersion on his integrity. You are actually not targeting D.Y. Chandrachud. There are two things what you guys are doing.
Okay. Harish Salvi ji.
What you are
through this.
deliberately doing? Why this?
Ajay Alok ji, sorry, interrupting you. Harish Salvi ji, namaste. This is Anand here. Thank you for your time, sir.
Good afternoon from London.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's evening here. But your thoughts on what stirred up perhaps a storm in a teacup? The liberals, the woke are very, very upset, sir.
What bothers me is that this has created a storm. And what bothers me is the kind of things which are creating storms in India. It tells you that this kind of climate change in the constitution is very unhealthy for a country. We have become so petty that we have a Chief Justice of India who's from Maharashtra. We have a Prime Minister who goes to his house and offers prayers in full public gaze. He doesn't meet him in the dark, in a dark alley or in the middle of the night to discuss government business. What's wrong with this? And do you think if our institutions are manned by people made of straw, that they would be so impressed by the Prime Minister coming to their house to participate in a puja that their judgments will be affected? I mean, have we lost all sense of proportion?
But that's what's being said, that in his remaining tenure, whatever judgments he would author or his bench would author will now be coloured.
Well, anybody who says this doesn't understand the constitution, doesn't understand democracy, and doesn't understand how the judiciary works. And tell me, honest to God, if there is a Prime Minister who is so inclined and a Chief Justice who is so inclined, do they have to meet in a public function? Or will they meet in discrete circumstances where people normally hatch conspiracies? I mean, is there even a modicum of sense left, or have we completely taken leave of all our sense?
Because it
and
is
you know what is going on in India today?
Ji.
And I hate making political comments, but I can't resist saying this. There are some people who are so restless at Modi 3 and so disappointed at Modi 3 that they are now taking a sledgehammer to every institution of this country. I mean, where constitutional office holders share stage with people who have abused and hated India. And then when the Chief Justice invites the Prime Minister to pray in his house on Ganesh Puja, which is a festival celebrated all over India, we create a rumpus.
There are legal luminaries, so one would give them based on their seniority, call them that they have also taken exception, saying the constitution has been now shamed because of
I don't know what the Constitution of India has to do with a personal attendance of the Prime Minister in a function, and it has happened so many times. I gave an instance, when cases were going on against Mr. Lalu Yadav, a group of people, we went for a seminar to Patna headed by Chief Justice Avadi. And we were invited for lunch by Lalu Yadav. And he said, I'm the head of the legislative wing of government. You have to come to my house. And Justice Ahmadi said, you're right. And we went and had lunch with him. What happened? Did any judgments against him change? So what is, today I'm telling you this problem is Modi specific. This problem is not institutional. If there was some other person who was Prime Minister of India who they liked, they would have said, what a wonderful gesture.
Yeah, one more thing they're saying is you could have met him for tea, but Ganesh Puja mein gaye, that's a problem.
See, which is the other thing. I don't understand this sense of secularism which is pervading India. I mean, England is a perfectly secular country, very careful about religious discrimination. But the King of England was sworn in a church. So, which secularism says that a state has to be irreligious? Secularism is all religions have to be treated equally. But we are all. I can tell you something, and I'm saying so in public now. On my father's prayer meeting, when Shri Modi was Chief Minister Gujarat, he came and sat in a church for 1.5 hours. for a service. And at that time, what would he have said? Wonderful. Why? Because he has gone to a church. So, this kind of thing has to stop in India. Absolutely destructive of public faith in institutions.
Final word to those who believe घर के चिराग ने आग जला दी, घर जला दिया. That's the words that have been used by a top politician from Maharashtra.
Well, I would only
He was
say,
on our side, he's only betrayed us. That's the kind of sense.
Well, if he thought he was on his side, I think that's the big mistake he made. A judge and our Chief Justice has to always be on side of the law. Do you like every judgment he gives? No, you don't. Do I think every judgment he has given? No, I don't. I've been a trenchant critic of a lot of his judgments. But I think as a man, you cannot fault him like this. You can criticize his judgments, but what wrong has he done? Does he not have Ganesh Puja in his house? He does. Is he not the head of the judiciary? If the head of the executive goes to his house in public gaze and offers prayers, what's wrong?
But why just 2 months before his tenure ends? What's cooking? That's another final.
Yeah. Ganesh Chaturthi came 2 months before his tenure, and either they would have had to extend his tenure to make sure it was not 2 months before his tenure or advance Ganesh Chaturthi. And neither of those could be done right. What a silly thing to say.
Harish Salvi ji, thank you for your time and thank you for making this exception that you're speaking to us while in transit. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Tehseen Poonawala, Ajay Alok, final comments. As Dr. Anand Ranganathan and Ishkaran Bhandari join us, we'll take the discussion forward. But yeah, the debate between the two of you. Yes, Ajay ji, you were saying something when I had to interrupt you, and then Tehseen will get the final word.
Yeah, the problem here is two things, two angles problem, what they are trying to target. First, of course, why for the Ganpati Puja? For what we are saying that what objections you have in Ganpati Puja, for which they don't have any answer. They start moving here and there, doing all jalebi sorts of thing. Second thing, if you remember, Anand, almost a month or 1.5 months back, there were a group of lawyers who had written a letter to the Chief Justice of India that there is a bunch of ecosystem who tries to influence the judiciary, and we have to be really careful at that. So this is again another form of pressurizing Chief Justice of India. This is again the second aim was to pressurize him by creating this controversy. And that's what we have just highlighted in front of the people.
I'd just like to end by saying, may Lord Ganesha, or Bappa as my son calls him, remove all the obstacles and gives the BJP some wisdom. This is not about a Ganesh Puja or an iftar or a private dinner. It is about the separation of the judiciary and the executive. And I think that not the Prime Minister, but the Chief Justice erred in calling the Prime Minister. I do believe that, with respect to the Honourable Chief Justice.
So you're praying only for the BJP, not for the other
for
side.
For wisdom in the BJP. Because the BJP is unfortunately leading us right now. It's unfortunately leading us.
Not for the other side, which is actually raising this brouhaha and stirring the storm in the teacup. You're not praying for some wisdom for those who have actually said ghar ke chirag ne aag jala di.
That person's an exception. Him no can help.
I just can't believe that.
Can help
but
Ajay can help.
Ajay Alok at Tehseen Poonawala, thank you very much. Thank you. Namaste ji. Thank you. Namaste. Dr. Anand Ranganathan and Ishkaran Bhandari with us this evening. Gentlemen, namaste. Separation of powers is what has been uski duai di ja rahi hai. That's what's being talked about. Ishkaran Bhandari?
Yes. Anand, firstly, there are three aspects which are being raised, including separation of power. The other is that secularism is dead. The third is judicial independence is dead and democracy is dead. So let us go with the historical fact. I will tell you about one judge. I do not know whether the audiences have heard of him, Mr. Baharul Islam. He used to be an honorable member of the parliament from the Congress party, resigned, became a High Court judge, then became a Chief Justice. Then his tenure got over, he retired, and after that, 6 or 7 months after that, suddenly elevated to the Supreme Court, which is of course not the norm. Only serving judges of the High Court are elevated to the Supreme Court. Stayed there for 2-3 years, passed a judgment favoring a very senior Congress Chief Minister, if I recall correctly, again resigned and again became a Congress Member of Parliament. So of course, let us not talk about how close the executive used to be with judiciary, and that is why we brought a collegium system. Some people don't like it, some like it, but what is the precedent? I've given you just one example, and there are many more examples of supersession of judges, how Congress government did it, or how certain judges of Supreme Court, later Chief Justices, wrote glowing letters to Mrs. Indira Gandhi when she again became the Prime Minister. But that is, I think, the minor debate. The real problem is, why did the Prime Minister go on Ganesh Puja to the house of the Honorable Chief Justice of India? So for one example, we have to know, and most people know about it, iftar parties were regularly held by the Prime Ministers and the President of India. And just recently, 2009, September 9, 2009, if I recall correctly, the then Chief Justice, Mr. KG Balakrishnan, went there. Nobody had a problem. It was not the death of secularism. It was not the death of constitution. It was not the death of democracy. And it obviously did not impinge on the judiciary's independence. So what has changed? Was iftar an event which was classified as secular, and Ganesh Puja an event which was communal, that the Prime Minister or Chief Justice of India cannot be part of it? Or was the other end of the spectrum that because it was a festival which they approved, or it was a celebration which a lobby or ecosystem in India approves, then it is kosher, then it is good. But if it is Ganesh Puja, then somehow they inherently have a problem. The third aspect is very important, because this is the new aspect I heard, that even if we had to go, even if the Prime Minister had to go, it should not have been clicked. A photograph should not have been taken. This is very interesting. An ecosystem which says loudspeaker 5 times a day, public display, our right to pray anywhere we want, even if it's a road or a railway track. That same ecosystem is saying, why is a practicing Hindu, the Prime Minister, having his photograph clicked? This was the same problem they had in Ganga Aarti, the same problem they had in Ayodhya. The problem for them is that people have moved past it. People know that it is also the fundamental right of the Prime Minister as well as the Chief Justice of India to celebrate Ganesh Puja. The only difference, I'll end by saying this, the only difference is earlier iftar parties were celebrated and was taken as a due course. Now, because you are having Ganga Aarti, you are having Ganesh Puja, that has become the norm and people are appreciating it. A big ecosystem is in panic, and to stop that, to prevent that, to not have Prime Minister or Chief Justice do it, they are creating all this hoopla about independence of judiciary getting damaged. If any, last line, sorry, if any judge or any Prime Minister or any government, anybody has to do anything which is not kosher, which is wrong, I believe it doesn't happen. But if it has to happen, it doesn't happen in the glares of camera doing puja. Anybody can have a private meeting which nobody will know about. So that is just
you've touched upon 2 points.
Basic problem is with Ganesh Puja.
You have touched upon 2 points. Masjid jao, Isai ghar jao, Gurdware jao, Derasar jao, it's all alright. Mandir jao to छुप के जाओ. बाकी सब जगह कैमरा ले जाओ, जग जाहिर करो, make it public. But if you are going to a temple, hide it. Oh, don't do it. And then you are damned if you do and damned if you don't. Because if you do it in public, then they'll troll you, oh, death of constitution, long live secularism. If they do it in quiet, then they will leak the video and say, Dikha, look at this, closeted, chup ke kar rahe hain. They're doing it, hiding it and doing it. But that's a classic game. That's one point you make. The second point, you talked about Baharul Islam. Baharul Islam, okay, now this is a book, Judges of Supreme Court of India, 1950 to 1989. George H. Garboy has written this book. That's the book, okay. So, and I'm here on page number 259. And I've got to thank our colleague Brajesh Kumar Singh, who's pulled out some phenomenal research, and these are his books that I'm borrowing tonight. Now, the first was Baharul Islam, and the appointments were done by the Law Minister. P. Shiv Shankar was responsible. This is what is written. All were appointed during P. Shiv Shankar's first spell as Law Minister. Baharul Islam, the first was Baharul Islam, who was sworn in on the 4th of December at nearly 63 and retired Guwahati High Court Chief Justice. He was the oldest ever appointed to date, and he's still the oldest ever appointed. In the High Courts, ladies and gentlemen, 62 is the age of retirement. In the Supreme Court, 65 is the age of retirement. Ishkaran Bhandari said Baharul Islam, a career congressman, sent to the Rajya Sabha. He was asked to resign from the Rajya Sabha and made the Chief Justice of the Guwahati High Court. Then he retires from there, and then he is appointed as, at 63, as a judge in this court. And he was the oldest ever appointed to date. Islam acknowledged, Baharul Islam, he owed this appointment to the Law Minister. So, the executive interfering in the judiciary. So, where is the separation of powers argument? Chandrachud resisted this appointment, but Shiv Shankar was insisted. Chandrachud is Justice D.Y. Chandrachud's father. He resisted this appointment, but he was prevailed over by the law minister P. Shiv Shankar then. Dr. Ranganathan, this is not separation of powers. This is kosher.
Good evening, Anand. Look,
But a Kiran Rijiju or Arjun Ram Meghwal makes a suggestion to the judiciary. Dekho, they're interfering in the functioning of the judiciary.
good evening, Anand. All those lawyers outraging over this, honestly, their clients are going to approach the courts tomorrow and in front of the judges plead, my lord, I have heard the arguments of my lawyer. मैं अकेले लड़ लूंगा ये केस, जीतू या हारू फर्क नहीं पड़ता, मुझे ऐसा lawyer नहीं चाहिए. Honestly, what are they on about? Look, there are two issues here and both merit going into, Anand, briefly, secularism and conflict of interest. So, you can give Hajj subsidy for decades, use taxpayers' money to host grand iftar parties, plunder state coffers to pay monthly salaries to thousands of Maulvis, ask government-run UGC to completely fund minority institutions that keep 50% seats reserved for Christians, step in to overturn a Supreme Court judgment just to appease Muslims, leech thousands of crores preferentially from Hindu temples, sell off and control thousands of acres of Hindu temple land, spend hundreds of crores of taxpayer money for the Kartarpur corridor. But the moment you have the Chief Justice of India performing a simple Ganesh Aarti at home and having Prime Minister as a guest, secularism khatre mein aa gaya. Recall that in the past, Chief Justices have attended iftar parties organized by the President and the Prime Ministers. The Chief Justice has sung Christmas carols with cabinet ministers joyfully in attendance. But today, it seems the Chief Justice and the Prime Minister, both Hindus, cannot perform a Hindu function at a home. And as far as conflict of interest is concerned, when Naveen Chawla, despite the Shah Commission charging him with committing atrocities during the emergency and deeming him unfit for office, was appointed as a chief election commissioner, ignoring the cries of the then CEC that Chawla was actually spying for the Congress and passing on sensitive information to it, was not conflict of interest. And are we forgetting Justice Thipse, who joined the Congress, or Justice Islam, as you said, who yo-yoed between Supreme Court and Rajya Sabha courtesy the Congress, and the Chief Justice can meet publicly and share gossip with Kapil Sibal. No issues. But he must not meet the Prime Minister. Look, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Bias and agenda or conflict of interest for a person come through. Even if you don't visit that person's home, that's common sense. Tell me, should journalists not visit 10 Janpath or 7 Racecourse Road for dinner or a celebration now? A famous journalist castigating the judge and the PM today accepted a Padma award from the Congress government. Returning to secularism very briefly, Anand, secularism for us is when there is no deity except Allah and no one has the right to be worshipped but him, amplified through a loudspeaker 5 times a day, is creating enmity. But peacefully chanting Hanuman Chalisa while not denigrating anybody else's religion or God is creating enmity. Secularism is controlling and taxing only temples but not mosques. Secularism is respecting the Supreme Court's Sabrimala judgment but overturning the Supreme Court Shah Bano judgment. For how long will we pretend that we are not practicing secularism but rather appeasement? Anand, if you truly believe that religion should keep out of state, and I do, the corollary is also equally applicable, that state should keep out of religion. But does it? Secularism is total separation of religion and state, total. Our state declares itself to be secular, but is shamelessly not so. Why is the state paying the surveyors of the Waqf board? Why is the state paying salaries to Maulvis? Why is the state giving interest-free loans to set up shops on Waqf and mosque land? Why is the state giving hundreds of crores to set up Christian development corporations? How can the state be secular and at the same time control more than 110,000 Hindu temples? How, Anand? Kaise bhaijan, bata do.
Very well said. I'm just going to read this before I get a final comment from Ishkaran. The Indian Constitution merely insists that secular and religious matters are different altogether. Let religion live and discharge its function for social good and not dabble in matters which are secular. I have discussed this question at length in my lectures on secularism and the Indian Constitution under the auspices of the University of Bombay. My conscience was absolutely clear in worshipping Vithoba and the Lord of Seven Hills, Venkateshwara. At the time I was performing the worship, I felt an indescribable sense of exhilaration. If that means I am irrational in my outlook on life, I would cheerfully plead guilty to that charge. I am not religious in the traditional sense of term. I am religious in the sense that I believe that there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. Prayer in the real spiritual sense has a place in life, and prayer does play an important role in the affairs and lives of men. prayer which makes you look inward and think of ethical, spiritual, righteous side of life and of one's duties. It is in this sense that I entered 2 temples as a devout Hindu and performed pujas. The impression left in my mind by those 2 solemn occasions is still alive. This is Justice B.B. Gajendra Gadkar in his book Ishkaran. He was Chief Justice of Bharat, Chief Justice of India at that time, and he went to Pandharpur, darshan of Vithoba, does puja there, and he does the full Kalasha Pradakshina and also sits for the Vastram, Abhishekam, at Venkateshwara temple.
Anand, the Chief Justice of India,
appointed by Nehru,
Constitution extremely well. Any Chief Justice. Yeah. Anand, any Chief Justice of India knows the Constitution extremely well, in fact interprets it, and is not appeasing to a particular vote bank. So he can define secularism in these terms in his own life also. Whereas the political class from Nehru onwards, secularism example was the president must not go to Somnath Mandir, or secular example was Hindu laws should be done away with and we should have a modern Hindu code, but Muslims should be allowed to govern their personal lives by Muslim personal law. Or an example of secularism would be that a Waqf Act which not only governs the Muslim land, but overwhelmingly they take over land belonging to other people and declare it as a Waqf property, whereas the government is taking over temples. So those are examples of secularism. And again, if a Chief Justice and the Constitution bench says give women maintenance in Shah Bano, then secularism lies in overturning their judgment effectively by law, or secularism lies in creating a places of worship act that even if the land belongs to you, even if you have title to the land, even if you have evidence, but please do not go to court, do not stake your claim in court. Those are examples of secularism, quite apart from Hajj subsidy, or how certain madrasas were being funded in Assam which were exclusively teaching one religion, religious doctrine of that religion. Those are examples of secularism for certain politicians. But the greater issue, and last I'll end by saying this, the greater issue is not that Chief Justice had a Ganesh Puja or the Prime Minister went there. The greater issue is you want to regulate, shame Hindus into not celebrating their festivities, be it Diwali, it's a cracker, be it Rakhi, it's patriarchy, be it Dahi Handi, it's height and it's dangerous, be it Raksha Bandhan, be it Karwa Chauth, you can make the list. So every festival finds some problem or the other, be it Holi, it's molestation, find some problem or the other, so you regulate to death and shame people from publicly celebrating their own religion. That is the larger issue, that is the larger goal, which suffers if the Prime Minister or Chief Justice of India openly celebrate it.
Well, I could, yes, Anand Ranganathan.
No, I'm just saying it's a very interesting parallel that can be drawn, because all these people who are outraging today, similarly outraged when, for example, the ISRO chief went to Tirupati for prayers before the launch. They forget that, just because somebody is going to a temple doesn't mean that he is not brilliant at science. Irrationality and what you're good at are a totally separate matter. For example, Dr. Abdul Kalam himself said that the best ideas that he got was during and after the morning prayers. And Ramanujam famously said that all his equations come to him in the morning. He gets up because his goddess keeps them on his tongue. So are we going to cancel Ramanujam and Dr. Abdul Kalam? These guys don't make sense, Anand. We must realize this.
No, they didn't do it with the Prime Minister there. No?
They make sense.
The issue is that they didn't do it with Prime Minister Narendra Modi there. Yes, I have to wind up. Yes, finally, 20 seconds and I'll interrupt you.
Just 10 seconds. I agree. I agree with everything Anand said, except one thing. They make sense. It's a strategy in which they want to stop public celebration of Hindu festivities. That is a strategy.
That's a clear, brazen strategy. I've got to wind up. Thank you very much, Ishkaran and Anand Ranganathan. As we wind up, ladies and gentlemen, with the hope and prayer that both Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Justice Chandrachud dispense their duties towards Bharat, towards their own constitutional responsibilities with the fullest of integrity, and that's what all the vignas, all the hurdles in their way in trying to do good for the country is dispelled by Ganpati Bappa. Stay with us. Big story coming up next.